Hey everyone, how you doing? My name is Brian Alsruhe, and this is my beautiful wife, Alena.
Hi.
And we are here today to talk to you a little bit about the upcoming New Life Marriage Weekend because we actually have a little bit of personal experience with it. What a lot of people do not know about us is that I guess probably about 12 years ago, we spent over a year separated. Our marriage was in a rough patch, and I personally was in like a really dark place. I was doing counterterrorism work for the government, and that led to me drinking too much, not sleeping right, all kinds of problems. I really just wanted to isolate myself because I felt like I was ruining your life. And so that it got to a pretty low spot, and then we got the opportunity to do a New Life weekend just like this.
Yeah, so my mom was a faithful listener to New Life, and she heard about the New Life weekend on the air and said, "Hey, why don't you guys go to this?" And so we signed up. We actually did it. We signed up for an event that was in Ohio at the time. And honestly, the day before we were going to leave, we had a flood in Maryland where we're from. So we actually had to call New Life and say, "Hey, is there any way we could attend another one?" And they were super gracious and moved the event forward for us to one in Denver, actually. And when we got there, it was about 4 months later, we got to go. And the first thing that we experienced was that everyone was super friendly and there were so many couples and we weren't alone. And for me, I had this idea of an idealized marriage, super high on a pedestal. I come from a very church background. Something was wrong with your marriage, something was wrong with you. And admitting that would be failure. And so, on my quest to be perfect, which is totally false, we ended up here. And that humility was what led us to be able to make some changes. But we realized we weren't alone, that there's no perfect marriage and that everybody's struggling and coming from all walks of life. And it was just about showing up and being willing to do some good work.
Yeah, because I think everybody does feel like they're the only ones experiencing these problems and they're the only ones going through something. But everyone's got something.
So true.
Everyone has got something going. And the crazy part about that New Life weekend was that it was the first time that I ever even believed that mental health was a real thing. Like I believed in mental health, but I always thought it was for like someone else. Like that's not for me. I don't need help with my mental health. There's nothing wrong, you know. I thought mental health was for like people who were like chasing invisible butterflies and stuff, but like not for like a normal person, you know.
Right.
And so when we went to this conference, like it was absolutely insane because we were sitting there and we were watching these presenters like teach us information, and slowly some things started to click, and I started to realize that like there's a lot of things from my past, like my childhood or the way that I interacted with my family or things like that. And as it turns out, I was able to identify those exact same issues in a lot of my current problems. And it kind of stemmed back. And that was the first time that I ever even thought mental health was a real thing. And now I'm actually getting ready to finish my master's degree. I'm in the very last part of my master's degree for clinical mental health to share the things that I learned in this that were what this weekend was a catalyst for. And now I'm trying to work with men because of a lot of guys don't believe in this type of thing.
Yeah, and the word catalyst is so good. That is what I would say that this weekend event was for us. It was a springboard for change. And there was a lot of reasons for that. We're going to share about that. What Brian's saying is, I've been a therapist for 15 years, and in my grad school program, I never even learned about what was the most important impactful thing for us, which was learning about attachment and how our past histories collide in our marriage or in our relationships, and how our family of origin really does shape us. And the events that happen really do matter for the way that we see life, the way we handle our stress, the way we give and receive love, the language that we have for emotion, and our ability to be aware of what's going on inside of us and then be able to share that. That's actually a learned skill, and it's really difficult if you've never been taught. And each one of us develop patterns of communicating that we learned, and it's not a blame game. We're not blaming anyone, right? We're just learning and understanding. So we gained a lot of empathy for why we are the way we are, and just attachments based on 70 years of research. So I feel like it was very scientifically based. It wasn't just like hey, just spend a little more time together and you're going to fall back in love and everything's going to be a-okay. It's, hey, this is real stuff and you actually do need to learn it. And in order to do that, hey, we're going to teach you. And to us, that was gold. And for me as a counselor, even that was incredible. And I use it every single day in my practice, and we use it every single day in our relationship because it builds empathy. And that was one of the things that we walked in without. I was just pointing the finger at him and thinking that he was the problem. And I was half the problem too. I learned that my attachment style was called a pleaser attachment style. And it was somebody who avoids conflict and honestly isn't really honest about feelings and emotions because they're so scared of feeling stress and anxiety with conflict. And so I would not share what was going on inside and procrastinate difficult conversations. And that was half of the issue that was going on, as well as just thinking, had to have this perfect marriage that doesn't exist. So didn't have the tools to do that. So I began to work on my side of the street, and that gave room for Brian to do the same and for me to just work on my growth goals, which is what they help you with, for me, because I wanted to get better and get healthier because I realized I had patterns that were not helpful in my marriage today.
And I think you brought up a really good point because basically at the time when we went to the weekend, it was basically like our house had like a plumbing emergency, right? Like a pipe burst and our house was flooding, but we didn't have the tools to fix it. And we just kept hoping that it was going to get better somehow, right? But hope is not a strategy. It isn't. Like, you need to get the tools and then apply them and work at it just like anything else. And you mentioned empathy, and I think that was such a huge thing because once I understood more about why you communicate the way you do, or why the tools you use when you're angry or when you're happy or when you're upset or whatever, once I understood where that was coming from, I was able to have a whole lot more understanding for you and where you're coming from. And I feel is that accurate for me back?
Absolutely. Just understanding that, if you're someone who isn't used to sharing what's going on and is also afraid of the other person's reaction as the avoider, you're going to go do something else. You're going to isolate. You may turn to a substance or something else where you're not finding relief in a relationship. And when you learn about attachment, you find out, are you someone who found relief in relationships, or did you turn to other things? And what did you learn growing up? So it gave me a lot of empathy for Brian, because there's a lot of trauma in your background. And I was like, wow, okay, I can be a little more patient here because now I understand the why behind things. And it gave us a lot more patience for one another. And, we got a great tool. Brian said, we had a plumbing, literally in our marriage, we had this leak that wouldn't stop. Right. And it was getting everything all messed up, ruining everything. And so we needed tools. We didn't just need hope, right? Because that wasn't working. Not only did we get hope from New Life, which we needed, we got tools. And one of the best tools was something called the comfort circle. And that was a way to do communication differently and to engage in, to turn towards one another and talk about what was going on, actually listen and not, wait for your turn to speak instead and hear what someone's trying to say. And that was a big deal. And it worked. And it developed a new pattern that we had to practice. It wasn't like we just got it right away, because we had our own pattern of doing things that just was dysfunctional. And so the healthier that we learned that we could get, and the more we talked with this new pattern, the better it got. We were able to work out a lot of the issues and still use it today.
And I think, like you just said, it gave us the tools because it taught me a language, because I come from a background where I know a lot of people have a similar background where they didn't learn emotions, I'll give you something to cry about, or you weren't able to share your emotions in a real way without it being criticized or judged.
Yep.
And so it literally taught me a new language and form of communication to use with you that I had never learned before. And so we were literally living in the same house, speaking two different languages, right? Totally. I was speaking physical, anger, all these one-sided emotions, and you were speaking completely different emotions. And this allowed us to kind of at least have enough of the same vocabulary where when we explained things and we had understanding for each other, that we were able to move past a lot of issues.
Yeah, and move through them. So
through them is better. That's better word.
Yeah, no, and it gave us that great tool. Another thing that was really helpful were the groups. I still remember the therapist counselor we had. He had written us such a kind note that we kept on our refrigerator for encouragement. But yeah, the power of the group, just seeing that we weren't alone and we had a place to go and process what we were learning. That was so important. Everyone was so kind.
Can I interject?
Yeah.
Okay.
Talk about it.
So let me tell you about our first group experience, right? Because like I said, I was in a dark place. To be honest with you, I didn't want to go. Right. I had one foot out the door. Mm-hmm. I'll say that, right? Like I was doing this almost as like, I'm just going to check the box and get through this. And then we're going to move on with whatever the future was going to hold. And then I thought about it. And before I went into the actual weekend event, I said, you know what, like we're paying a lot of money for this. We're flying out to Colorado. This is a big deal. If I have to be here, then I'm going to give it everything that I have. I'm going to fully put myself forward. And so the very first time, because you're in this big like ballroom, right, where you're learning these things, and then they put you down into a small room where you actually get to practice and put into action the things that you just learned, and you get to personalize it and do everything like that. So the very first time that we sat down in group, you're with probably like 6 other couples or something, 4 other couples, and I immediately jumped up when they asked for someone to share. I immediately was like, hey, I'm going to get this all table so I don't need to have anxiety over speaking, but like, I don't want to be here. Yeah. I didn't expect to be here. I don't want to share, but you know what? Like I'm going to, and I was the first one to be vulnerable. I was the first one to be open. I was the first one to show the ugly parts. Yeah. Right. Because if you don't show the ugly parts, because everyone, when you go into one of these situations, you're in front of other people, you're in front of like a counselor, and you want to put your best foot forward. Like you said, like there's shame in saying like, we weren't able to make this work out. We don't know what's wrong with us. Right. There's shame in that. But like, if you just keep things with like rose-colored glasses and like put your best foot forward, you're never going to make progress during here. Like this is the time to throw all the dirty laundry out, to get it out there, because you're around other people who are experiencing the same thing, and you have a professional in front of you who's going to provide you with tools to work your way through that. Right. But like, if you are unwilling to show your ugly, you are not going to get out of what you could get out of an experience like this. You are not going to be able to if you don't open. And you being open allows other people to feel free to be open. And that is. And
it did. It really did. It started this like domino effect of all the couples, and we got really deep really fast, and it's confidential. It's not going anywhere. And, we always say vulnerability breeds some more vulnerability. When one person is open and honest, everybody else is going to be too. And anything that you put out into the light, outside of hiding, it allows God to shine his truth on and his love on in the form of the people around you too. And so they're part of the process. And we felt that. We felt accepted and not judged. We felt held and taken care of in that space. So what Brian's saying is one of the most important things that when we showed up with, got a lot out of it. A couple other little things that we wanted to mention was the power of small steps. We know going out to the event was a big step, but we were struggling spiritually too. And one of the pieces of advice was just a small step of holding hands and silently praying as a small step to start. That was really helpful for us and actually made such a big difference in our lives. We loved how New Life used humor for difficult topics. And they did a really good job of being, showing important, serious topics, but then there's humor involved. So that was awesome. We appreciated that. And also just that we were able to have both hope and tools. That was very important for us. And we still use a lot of this today. I said earlier, attachment theory is huge and it's real. It's based on 70 years of research. So we use that every day. We each have our own growth goals for our attachment styles so we can become more secure for one another and for the people that we meet every single day. And as counselors, we've got to be that way. So we're working on that. also we're using the comfort circle. We've learned it so well that it's become a little bit more second nature, but we're still following that pattern. We're still practicing. Both of us are involved in fitness. We know that you've got to ingrain good reps, like lifting weights. You've got to ingrain good reps. So we really try to have good reps of conversations so that we're creating new neural pathways, new patterns in our brain, in our body, and in our marriage. So those are some big things that we've taken away. Anything else that forgiveness, being willing to take ownership for your part and be willing to forgive. God forgave us for so much. And seeing that example just really allowed us to just be humble and want to forgive the other person and not hold resentment forever, because at some point you need to make the decision to move forward.
And everyone needs to realize that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you did not get into this situation alone, right? Like it's not all your fault. It's certainly not all their fault, because a lot of people are like, if they would just change this, if they would just do that, but you got to look yourself, right? Like even when you say things like that, you need to say I statements. Like I feel like this when that happens. Like it's not about blaming. It's not about anything like that. And again, that comes down to communication, because for a lot of people, their problems are not necessarily in the actual things themselves. It's about how they're communicating expectations and different stuff like that. It can really make a difference.
Yeah. And we've also found that working on our emotional intimacy has helped our spiritual intimacy and sexual intimacy just be so much more fulfilling and based in what really matters, making sure that we're good together, and talking and loving one another, and also mutually submitting to one another out of love. So we're a team. We're working together on this, and one person's not above the other.
So where are we now?
Yeah, where are we now? We are just getting ready to celebrate 17 years of marriage. So we've been together 12 years.
Post separation. So we were together 7 years.
Yeah.
Had the about year separation, a little more than a year, and then we've been together 12 years since then. And so we've been together longer since the separation. And I know there's a lot of people out there who are separated or talking about separation and things like that. And it's tough to hear stories about people, because there's not a lot where people get separated and people come back together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like, we're trying to offer hope that like, if we can do it, you can do it, but you can't do it without tools.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can't do it alone. I work these New Life weekends now for the last 10 years, and it's incredible, and it continues to get better and better and better, but you can't do it alone, and you've got to learn a new way. And we wanted to give you guys the encouragement. You got to be willing to take a risk.
You do. Like at the time, money was tight. We didn't particularly feel like we could go to Colorado or that was the right move, but we took a risk, right? And I would encourage every single person out there, compared to like doing like an online course or like a Zoom call type situation like this, I would highly encourage that you get outside of your comfort zone. You go on this little adventure together, because you already need to start working together as a team. You can start working on a lot of stuff that you learn, because traveling is stressful, right? But like when you're at home, if you're at home on a Zoom meeting, you have the kids, the dogs, the work, the house problem, the distractions, right? You're distracted. Everything is pulling you away. Mm-hmm. But if you decide to commit to like going to a place, flying out there, driving out there, whatever, and you get a full 2 days to actually focus on yourself and your relationship. And that can do a lot. But the distractions mess a lot of things up.
Yeah, make that choice to invest in yourselves. And I know New Life has a weekend coming up in October 17th through 19th in Dallas. So if something that we said today has encouraged you, maybe you're getting ready to sign divorce papers, maybe you're separated and don't know what to do next, maybe you're alone struggling and you don't know what the next step is, or maybe you just want to work on communication and intimacy, you all can benefit from this New Life weekend. So if something we said encouraged you, it really helped us. And not only did it help us, it propelled us to do weekly therapy for a year. We continued the work, and we're still continuing the work. So it is work, and it takes effort to be able to make the changes that you need to make. So let us encourage you to go ahead, make that choice, sign up. We can't wait to see you there. We're just excited for you, and we're so happy to share.
We really thank you all for your time and your attention and everything that goes into this. And we just wanted to take a couple minutes to share our story and we hope that you guys take advantage, or at least do something to really make a real effort towards making change.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a great day.